All right, here we have this week's Torah portion. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Shemini. And Parsha Shemini, it talks about the 8th day of the inauguration of the tabernacle, which is a misnomer because there's no such thing as the 8th day. There were 7 days of inauguration of the tabernacle. And on the day after that, that was the first day that the tabernacle was open for business. And that was the day that Nadav and Avihu rushed in uninvited, improperly, and they died. A terrible thing. It wasn't the 8th day. There was no such thing as the 8th day. There was only 7. This question is asked by Rabbi Ephraim Lunchich, which was called the Kli Yakar. And he asked this question. First of all, let's give charity. Charity saves from death. Charity brings all good things. Let's praise the creator of the universe. Hodu Hashem ki tov ki lo chazdov. Let us praise God, he's good, and forever is his kindness. So Rabbi Lunchitz asked this question. Una for Anford, and Rabbi Lunchitz, he answers that question by saying, this is a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1960. And he answers the question, as thus was the Torah, that the Torah calls this day the 8th day, because it's in order to tell the importance of that day. But it says afterwards, because it says that God appeared to them. As in them achtag, then in the 8th day, beweist sich der Eibishter God made himself known to you, to the Jews. What happened? The Jewish people left Egypt on the 15th day of Nisan, and then 50 days later, they got the Torah. And then 40 days after that, they worshipped the golden calf. And then on Yom Kippur, God gave them the second tablets and forgave them for the sin of the golden calf. And then he gave them, there's different opinions about when exactly this happened, but then he gave them the commandment of building the tabernacle, and they worked on the tabernacle until the first day of Nisan. Then it was open. But 7 days before that, they had to prepare the tabernacle and the altar, and everything. They had to prepare it. So that was the 7 days. On the 8th day, that was the day it was the tabernacle was open. But there's no reason to call it the 8th day. There was only 7 days that were commanded to prepare it. So after the 7th day, then it was just open. It wasn't called the 8th day. So he says, because the Rabbi Lunchich, the Kli Yakar, he explains that it's to explain the number 8 is something special. Something that's a special number, so therefore it causes by the name a number 8, even though that it really is not relevant to the previous days. It's just a special day. That's the day that God's presence actually made itself visible in the tabernacle. So therefore it explains for us, why is it on that particular day did God make himself known on that day? God showed himself. Well, is there Yom HaShemini, because that's the 8th day. On the river, and therefore, as Faran, there is a Hecher Kadusha, there's a higher holiness, which than the previous 7 days. The room, because Kol Mitzvah Sheva, because the number 7 is called mundane, 7 days of the week. Mitzvah Shmini, and the 8th day is holy. That's what the Kli Yakar says. Und das ist euch der Tam. That's the reason why Mila, circumcision, pushes away Shabbat. Why? Because Shabbat is holy, but not compared to circumcision. Circumcision is on the 8th day. Because Mila, circumcision, that's the number 8. 8 days a Jewish child is 8 days old. They circumcise him. And Shabbos is only in the 7th day. And the Ruchani and the spiritual pushes away the physical. That's what the rabbi from the Kli Yakar says. Rabbi Ephraim Lunchich. That's what he says, that the number 7 is a weekday. It doesn't mean to say that it's really mundane, the number 7, because Shabbat is a holy day. Nor be bound, but because as Oich Shabbat, because Shabbat goes is one of the days of the week, and the days of the week are measured by the sun going around the earth, the earth going around the sun, whatever you want to say. Is there noch als verbunden mit der Bria? So therefore, the number 8, Shabbat, is holy, but it's connected to the world. God made the world 6 days. On the seventh day, he rested, but seventh day is one of the days. When the Gabi the Mispar Shmini, but the number 8, which the number 8 is higher than the whole entire creation. When his miyuchad alain yisbrech, and this is for God alone, is vertafilu Shabbat. Even Shabbat is called weekday. Number 8, that's how holy it is. So therefore, this week's Torah portion is called the 8th day to indicate that it is just a result of the 7 days of inauguration before. So he calls it the 8th day, even though it's really a misnomer. It's really not the 8th day. It's the day after the 7th day. But it's called 8 to stress the number that it has a holiness, a special holiness that's outside of the whole cycle of nature. Zoich movement, it's also understood with the Kli Yakar bringt, also is vegan, the Maila Kadusha from Mispar Shmini, also what he says about the holiness of the number 8. What does he say, the number 8? One second. There you go. There's another thing that's number 8, which shows on holiness, and that is the Kinor Shel Yamoto Moshiach. It says that the what is it, the lute, the harp that Moshiach is going to have 8 strings to it. Now, the harp of Moshiach is going to have 8. Was pashut, which simply as their kinor, that the harp, or the lute, whatever it's called, of the holy temple, which was only 7. The holy temple only had 7 strings to it. The lute, that was one of the instruments. There were all these instruments that were played in the holy temple. There was a whole orchestra that played in the holy temple. The Levites, and one of the instruments was the lute, and the lute had a lute is also like this. You see a hold it, string it. Is also was it was 7 strings. 7 strings, and that in the days of the Mashiach is going to have 8. So the lute, which was 7 strings, that's holy. Nor lagabi dem kino, but in regard to the lute in the days of the Mashiach, is will be called mundane. Okay, now let's just one small. Let's take one step back over here. The whole purpose of Judaism is to reveal God in the physical world. I know we've said this about 500 times, but to reveal God in the physical world. That's the whole idea of the Holy Temple. You have a building which is a sample of what the whole world is supposed to be. One building, a physical building made from bricks, and when the Jews left Egypt, they didn't make it with bricks yet because they had to assemble it and disassemble it and all the journeys. But when they came into the land of Israel and built the first temple, so that was built from bricks and from cement. And so the whole purpose of it, no matter what it was built from, was taking physical things from the world, materials, and making that a place where God would be revealed. And what does it mean that God would be revealed? That you, in the tabernacle, you would feel, number one, that God is creating you. You feel that you're just a creation, that God is creating you. God is more real than we are, but even more that God is creating us for a purpose, and that's to serve Him. To serve Him. The tabernacle was the example of how Jews serve God, but every human being is created to serve God in their own way. The non-Jews, the 7 Noahide commandments. So in other words, everyone is important. Everyone is indispensable. That's the purpose of Judaism in general, and the Holy Temple, the tabernacle especially, is to reveal the importance of this physical world. No emphasis on going to heaven. So the number 8 is somehow indicating the holiness of the temple, the tabernacle, the Beit HaMikdash. So the Rebbe says, everything in the Torah Al inyanim, everything which is in the Torah, comes down to us. Gefind mir ähnlich derzu euch benogea Torah. The same thing we can find in the Torah, that there's holy and then there's like holy of holies. Torah, even the Torah, the way it is in this world, is holy. And from deswegen, nevertheless, the Gabidem limud Torah was Moshiach, but regarding the learning of the Torah, which Moshiach will be revealed, right? Like we said, the holy temple was holy, the tabernacle was holy, but the holiness that Moshiach will bring to the world is even greater. The same thing as the Torah. The Torah, the way we learn it now, is holy. The Torah is holy, but the way the Torah is going to learn the Mashiach is going to learn the Torah. This is even this is makes the regular Torah that we've been learning now like mundane. Okay, men darf aber verstehen. We have to understand that tirutz, the answer from the Kli Yakar for Amfrit, this answers only. It doesn't answer his question. The Kli Yakar asks the question, why call a whole Torah portion by the name 8? And even more, why is the first sentence of this week's Torah portion, and it was on the 8th day, when in fact there was no such thing as an 8th day. There were 7 days of inauguration, and that's it, 7 days. And then they started working. Why call it the 8th day? So he says they call it the 8th day because it was so important. It was so special. It was called so. And so, I mean, that doesn't really answer the question. Don't call it 8th day. Call it the super holy day. Call it the holy of holy days. Call it the God's day. Call it some other day. Why number 8? 8 implies that it is a continuum of the previous days before it, and it's not. We're saying that this 8th day that the tabernacle was open wasn't really the 8th day. There was a revelation of God that was not there in the previous 7. It's a whole new thing. Okay. So if so, we're gonna explain something very important here, and that is, what is the meaning of our doing Torah and commandments nowadays? I mean, the Torah and the commandments we're doing nowadays is essentially only to bring Mashiach. Mashiach comes, he'll reveal all of the godliness that we aroused by doing the commandments and for the last 3,300 years. Reveal the godliness. But godliness is a thing that's always there. Godliness is always, God never goes away. God is always present. It'll just be revealed in the days of the Mashiach. So Mashiach's going to come, it's going to be a whole different thing. It's going to all be, now we're just working on Mashiach. So it's the same thing over here. The Jews worked to inaugurate the tabernacle. When the tabernacle was actually open for business, then it was a whole new business. Then God revealed himself there. It was a whole new thing. Why call it a continuum of what it was before when it's really not? It's almost like, say, a baby when he's born, right? So a baby when he's born, you start counting how pregnant is the wife, your wife. My wife, she's pregnant now. This is about 780 months. What are you talking about? 700 months. I mean, it's only 9 months. Yeah, but we continued counting. After the baby was born, we're counting months. 9 months. So as soon as the baby was 1 month old, we say it's not 1 month old. Please, we'd rather not say it like that. We want to say that the child is now 10 months old. Well, but that's ridiculous. The child is not 10 months old. He was born, and that's because of a new thing. The same thing with the Holy Temple. The inauguration day, that was like pregnant, there was preparation. And then when after the 7 days, then it was born, God came into why call it the 8th day? It's like calling a child after he's born, keep counting months. And so it doesn't make any sense. Vipalt as a Shemini, because the number 8 is a special day. It's a totally different day than all the others. Hatzich Tachlechora and Gans and Kain, so it has no connection to the previous days which are before it. Vazayin and Keneged Shiva Yamei Binyan, which they correspond to the 7 days of creation. is for vos hastis. So why is this day called the eighth day? Vos does means, which this seems to imply that it's only just an addition to the previous days, which it's not. Huh? Is there beer? The explanation is like this. All the revelations that are come because of the Moshiach, Zayin and Uphanger, they depend on unser itztika avoda, on what we do now. Chach the Giluyim, because the revelations in the future, Zayin and the Bechinas, they are the never, in the future is going to be in the spiritual level of 8. Vimerumas, like the rabbis say, the kinor of the Shmoni Yamimim, like it says that the lute of the Mashiach is going to be 8 strings. Hecher from Kalalas Inyan, which is higher than the whole entire creation. Univroim mit Zayin Avoda, but us creations with our service, no matter how much Torah and commandments we do, we can't reach this level. No, the Giluyim, but the revelations which come by means of an arousal from above. Und deswegen darf man haben unser Itztukar, we have to have our service now in order to draw down the levels of service of God to be we should make a vessel. Und then noch dem, after which we have finished our work, as vetman given milmaila will be given above the service from in the future, the revelations from the future, which are higher than our service can reach. Okay, what's the Rebbe saying like this? Listen, what is Judaism? What is Judaism? There were people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were the beginners of Judaism. What did they do? They realized that there's God. They realized that there's God and that God creates us. And they realized that God wants an interaction between us. He wants an interaction. That if we turn all of our energy and desire to the creator of the universe, that the creator of the universe will actually respond, respond. There's a how do you say, a partnership here. Partnership. We do things, God reacts. God does things, we react. Now, that's Judaism. God himself, the creator of the universe, he cares about us, he reacts to us. That's what Abraham revealed, Yitzhak, Yaakov revealed. But the only way to really feel this is when there's difficulties. We're in the world. The soul comes into the body in the world. It's a terrible torture for the soul. Unfair. But that's the whole reason God created the world. And so it is also afterwards. The only way God reveals himself, and well, there's 2 ways. One way is that God reveals himself on his own. On his own. That's something like the Jews getting taken from Egypt and God revealing, giving them the Torah. God just did it on his own. Or there's another way that God reveals himself by means of our work. So, I mean, obviously, if God does it on his own, it's much higher than whatever we can do. But it's like a person that has a child that's 3 years old. So he gives him an allowance, he gives him money, he gives him food, he gives him clothes, he gives him, obviously, the parents give, but the child, let's say he's 3 years old, say, no, Daddy, I want to work for it. I want to work for my food and my clothes. So how much can a 3-year-old child accomplish? What can he possibly do? What's he going to do? He's going to get a job. He's going to, what can a 3-year-old child do? He can't do anything, right? He can build a little, play in the sandbox or something like that. He can, maybe he can take out the garbage once in a while or something. What can he do? It's for certainly it's not going to earn his keep. The same thing with us. God giving it for free is for sure it's going to be more than what we can do on our own, right? Says the Rebbe, not exactly. Here we're coming to see that it's not so. The true God gives us life, and God gives us everything for free. God creates everything for free. But the revelations that are coming by Moshiach, that's going to be greater than anything in the physical world, and that comes only through our efforts. but the efforts have to be a lot of times in total darkness. That's a whole new thing. And that's what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob revealed. That they served God in total darkness. God promised them all these things and didn't give them anything he promised. They're going to get the land of Israel. They're going to have children like the stars in the sky. He only gave them troubles. The Jacob's life ended in Egypt. The Jewish people were were captives in Egypt. True, when Jacob died, it was the true harsh exile had not begun. The servitude had not begun. But for sure, they were not in the land of Israel. God did not keep his promise. So that's what the Rebbe is saying here. Sometimes only by means of our work can be revealed a higher revelation. A dugma, an example is Shabbos, is Shabbat, the day of Shabbat. There's two levels in Shabbat. Number one, there is Aina from the Sheva Yemei Binyan. It's one of the 7 days of the week. But is far gleich mit the Friedeke Sechstag. Shabbat is similar to the 6 days before it. Is a Kodesh, it's holy. But the Kedusha, the holiness of Shabbat, is oich verbunden, it's connected with the creation. 6 days you work, on the 7th day you stop working, you rest. Right? So in other words, because you worked 6 days, so you rest on the 7th day. If so, the 7th day is connected to the creation. Like God created the world in 6 days, and the 7th day he rested. So the 7th day is God's day, but it's God as he is a creator. That's connected to what's called the Hishtalshlus, the chain of creation. During their avoda, this is drawn down by means of our service. Why it states la'asot at the Shabbat, we have to make the Shabbat. That's one level of Shabbat. But then there's a higher level of Shabbat. That's usually called the daytime Shabbat in the daytime. That's Shabbat. That's something like la'atid, the world to come. From the Yom Shekula Shabbat, which was the day from the day which will be totally Shabbat. So in other words, in the 7th day of creation, 7 days of the week, we have a little taste of Moshiach. When is that? That's the higher level of Shabbat. This is higher for the whole entire creation. Like we said before, can mensud der madriga, to that level you cannot reach by means of your own service. You can't do anything to get it, like the little child, right? That he says, I want to earn my own money. So how much can he work for, right? He can work in order that his parents should buy him a pair of shoes or something, but not feed him the whole week and give him clothes. Nor ziver, but this level will be drawn down from above. But that God gives us a free gift. Like it says in the Gemara, on the level of Shabbat, is Zochter Eberster, God says, Matana Tova Yeshli Bebeit Genuze Shabbat Shemo. On the second level of Shabbat, the higher level of Shabbat, this is like a free gift. Right, like to take our example, I don't know how valid this example is, but I'll just keep using it. So a child says, Daddy, Mommy, I want to work for I don't want anything for free. So the parents look at each other and say, that's wonderful. What can you do? You can just clean up your room and you can, and then you give them food. And the child says, once again, I want to know, how much do you pay me for cleaning my room? So we pay you for cleaning your room. Let's say we'll pay you, $5 a day. That's pretty good. How much does all the food cost that I eat? Well, that's $5 a day. What about the room? Let's not talk about that. What about my clothes? Not only that, I think the food maybe costs a little bit more. That's maybe one meal is $5 a day. But what about all the other meals? So it ends up that the child works and he gets his reward, his whatever is his $5 a day. That's like the first level of Shabbat. We work the whole week and we get commensurate to what we worked, we get. But then there's the higher level of Shabbat. That's like a free gift. The parents say, yes, because we love you and we're so happy you want to do the work yourself. So therefore, we give you a free gift, which has nothing to do with the work that you did. The Madriga, this is the higher level of Shabbat, but this is a gift from above. Was a matana, which a gift, You receive not because of something work that you did, nor not davka, but only because they're noting the one who's giving, vilim giving a matana, wants to give him a gift. Oy men git as im zu lieb dem avoda. If you give it for as a reward, that's not called a gift. This is called a wage. That's a gift. So Shabbat, there's two levels of Shabbat. One level of Shabbat is like a wage that we earned, and the higher level of Shabbat is a gift. Two levels of Shabbat. But from deswegen, nevertheless, even the highest level of Shabbat, which is a free gift, this is drawn down by means of what? That we had to work previously. True, it's the reward is not commensurate to the work we did. It's infinitely greater, but we had to do the work first. Like the rabbis say, Misha Torah Be'erev Shabbat, a person who makes an effort the day before Shabbat, he's going to eat on Shabbat. Thus, this means takanitas the avoda ma'ora, that our work arouses God to give us this gift on Shabbat, as is like the rabbis say, ilav the avid necha the nafshe lo avi yavid the matana. Who do you give gifts to? You give gifts to someone who you like. True, it's a gift, but you give because he did something. The person did something that you like that person. Therefore, you give him a gift. So the same thing is with Shabbat. On Shabbat, because we did something God likes, namely we worked on the 6th day, so God gave us a gift which has nothing to do with the work that we did. It's a free gift. And then der Makabel, when the receiver volt im nit verschaffen kein nachas ruach, if the receiver of the gift didn't give the giver any sort of pleasure, he wouldn't have given him the gift. You give a gift to somebody who you like for some reason. You like the guy's nose. You like his where he came from the same town as you did or something. Nor when gitim de matana, he gives him a gift because some or other the person was pleasing to him, so he gave him a gift. Was erhat getan der noten. I like you, so I'm giving you a gift. Is there gitim asach mir? But then, nevertheless, it is still a gift, and this is much more than a person could earn on his own. Al derech similarly also is as benageh is relevant to the revelations which come on the 8th day of the Miluim. On this 8th day, what are we saying? Chach the Giluim, because the revelations that God revealed himself on this 8th day, they were from such a high place as which a human being on his own cannot reach this. Doch seinen den nimshach, so it's drawn down. Doch seinen ze nimshach govern nor the avoda only in the service on the 7 days of the week, the 7 days of inauguration. So the Jews, first of all, had to do the 7 days, as b'shas is given the shlemus avoda, when the Jews had completed their 7 days of preparation. His nimshach kavorn was drawn down to them also, an arousal from above, which is on its own. God liked the Jews. You did what I said. I'm giving you a free gift. What's the free gift? Is the Rebbe, therefore, a revelation of godliness, which is totally above and beyond anything that they could possibly do on their own. Weil this comes noch the avoda from Shiva for the 7 days. Okay, so what's the Rebbe saying over here? Listen, the Rebbe is saying like this. The Jewish people are here to reveal God in the world. How can you reveal God in the world? Is there anything you could possibly do to reveal God in the world? It makes no sense whatsoever. Afterward, we're just creations. We're created by God. Like I said before, it's like Donald Duck telling Walt Disney what to do. He's just a creation. We're just creations. We're being created by God. How are we going to rouse God? But the fact is that we do. And here's the example. And in fact, not only do we do it, but that's the whole essence of the mechanism of this world, the dynamics of the world, why God created the world. God created the world so there would be human beings, and human beings would have free will, and human beings from their own nature, is to use their free will for selfish things, to be natural. And the Jewish people are here to tell the whole world, listen, your creations, God loves you. God is infinitely great. God is infinitely real. You want to be healthy. You want to be happy. You want to be, how do you say, feel meaning in your life? Then connect yourself to your creator. Your creator is infinitely real and is infinitely dynamic and young and fresh all the time. And connect yourself. So a person can say, okay, I'll connect myself because maybe psychologically, it works, which that could be true. So the Rebbe says this is, we're talking about something which is above and beyond anything psychological. It's above and beyond anything anyone can possibly understand. It's in a way that you get, so to speak, no benefit from it whatsoever. It's just a revelation of the truth. Is there such a thing in the world? Is there such a thing? Says the Rebbe, yes. It was revealed in the Holy Temple. And it was revealed not by means of the service of the Jewish people, but because the Jewish people serve God, so then God gave them a free gift. And that free gift, that's the number 8. And that's the whole essence of what Judaism is to reveal this number 8 all the time, everywhere in the world. This revelation of God. But it depends on our service. As we're going to explain more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's have a short story.